the first of the three C's, content. Talk to me, reference the task that you talked about. What was the content? Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
So the content was task 5 on waves. Understanding information, sending coded messages, and binary.
And say the other ones again.
Sending coded messages.
Okay, let's stick with this one. Anybody have anything to add to this? Even if you're looking at it right now for the first time. My eye goes to this word for content. That's your information. Are kids learning about light waves, sound waves, both? We don't know. In the same unit? Same unit. Yep. So, but I would still write that down as light and sound waves as information that they're learning. That's the content that they're learning. Anybody have anything they want to add? Okay, so content. We're going to go back to what do we think is the definition of this and solidify it once we do the other one, again, so we can look for that pattern. So what was the other one on? Second grade ELA, which was the story, right? Writing a story. So this is second grade. This was fourth grade. Okay, talk to me about the content. Okay, so as we think about it, what about these pieces make this content? How would you describe what content is? Like the standards. Like, let's keep it simple. It's the standards. I don't know where my other marker is, so I'm just going to do this. So it's specific to probably your class and probably that one unit or another unit like it. Like, you're not going to do multiple units talking about light and sound waves. You're probably going to do it once, and then you're going to move on. So it's standards. It is sort of unit focused. Not always, but most of the time it's unit focused. There was something else that you guys. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes that's different than what's in my curriculum and lessons. So I kind of go back to, in grading, I just need to make sure that they know this. Yep. Kind of go back to my lesson. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. So when I say content, it's standards. Those standards could be information, right? Like story elements, but it could also be a skill. You could talk about writing a story. So it could be either information or skills or a combination of both. But I think prioritizing, here's what the unit's asking, but like when we looked at the social studies units, and they go through, there are probably 60 to 70 standards in there. And so thinking about what's one or two that I'm going to focus on, but going back to what is the biggest piece of information that is most important for students to know in this. But so it's a combination of information and skills. It is usually akin to the standards. Standards don't usually yet get to the more conceptual level. So we'll do concept in a second. Does this make sense? Okay. There is one piece in here, and I'm going to use this to lead us to the more conceptual. There is one piece in here, and in retrospect, I should have said, well, I don't like using the word should. I wish I had. I wish I had just said what's one piece on the whole chart here that I actually think is more of a concept than content. Yes, information transfer. Yep. This to me starts to lead students to the more conceptual why. Yes, you could absolutely do. You could do that, but it's a big idea that what?
Lots of examples.
So binary code is an example of information transfer. Light waves are an example of information transfer. Sound waves are an example of that. So this is the big theme. It seems, again, this is all I know of this unit. So if you guys have greater understanding of what, is that it? Okay, that's it. Okay. So information can be transferred in lots of different ways. I was at dinner with Margaret and Paul last night, and there's some sort of ginger ale that you all have here. Burners it is. And Paul actually heard that come up. I wonder if it's this unit. Was that yesterday at Hillside? Yes. And he's like Verner's, and or said the ginger ale, and Margaret was like, it's Verner's. And so, but just that idea of that goods and services can get transferred, and to what degree. That might be a way that we can, if we're talking about binary code, light and sound, well, how might you transfer that to maybe a different context? But it's all under that idea of information or goods or services or whatever. Things go back and forth. And here's example 1, example 2, example 3. But I would say that this piece, information transfer, is more of the concept, the big idea. So let's talk about, are there other concepts? Usually I like to choose one, again, just because I like to keep it simple. But there could be lots of options that you could choose. So is there another concept? What did you guys talk about? Those who talked about this one. Oh, you guys had it that way. Yep, okay. Okay. Making images and messages. How does that?
Information transfer to make images.
Oh, got it. Okay, so is communicate as part of like communicating? It's a way to communicate. Is that what you mean?
Well, my understanding is that she's saying, how are messages and images like formed electronically, and how do you get those messages? So it might be.
Okay. Where does is that what you're talking about, Lauren? Okay, great. Where does that? So the idea that whatever, Ashley, can you say it again?
When you're transferring messages and images, like what are they made up of, and how are they getting from you to someone else?
Where does that idea belong? Somewhere, it belongs somewhere on here. I see it as very much aligned to something on this page. Where would that go? Can you say it one more time?
So how? She wrote it down. I'm just trying to explain it. So how, when you're sending messages, how are messages and images transferred from one person to another, or from one person to the internet?
It could be an example of light waves. It could be an example of sound waves. It could be an example of binary code, right? So it's examples of the content, the specific details, if you will, around it, the bigger overarching thing seems to be still information transfer, or even maybe you could go with communication, because that's also information transfer, right? So how would we, well, actually, let's look at the second story first. What are the big concepts in the second grade story?
There was like some change, right? Like, you know, the 3 bears, now make them 4. You know, 3 little pigs, now change your view or perspective and write it this way.
So that seems to be one of the themes is perspective. You're doing a different perspective.
Twist on fairy tales.
Yep. So perspective could be a theme, because what you're going to write is going to depend on what perspective you're taking. So perspectives might be a theme. The idea of sequencing might be a theme. The group yesterday said that too. Yeah. Sequencing or
Based on all the examples and all the readings that we've done, the concept is you being able to now create your own story, knowing story elements, knowing character perspective, knowing all of that. Now you create.
If you know how to structure it, then you can do whatever is on your mind task, because you know how to structure a story and how it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And specifically, this one's talking about fairy tales. What's the big idea behind fairy tales?
Once upon a time, there's some magic.
But purpose, what's the purpose of a fairy tale? Yes, it's magical, but there's a lesson involved, there's a moral, right? So that could be another, is it M-O-R-A-L? M-O-R-A-L-E would be morale, right? So a moral. Morale. So the idea, so now let's take a look at what are these, what's the pattern that you see with concepts? Generalized. They're ideas. Big ideas, themes. Themes, general ideas. There was one more. General. Somebody said generalizations. Oh, yes, big ideas. So this was big ideas, and then generalizations.
With the concept, are you supposed to be pulling multiple together to answer the concept in some way?
Yes, that is perfect. Yes.
Does the concept have to be family?
So let me I just want to write that down so that you are pulling the standards together to kind of answer or address or talk about the concept. Great question. Pulling standards together to address or answer the concept. No is the short answer. I would not go with all 3 or even 2, but that's me. I like to simplify things. I like to keep it simple. Like, I want to know this is my big focus for this unit, and everything I'm going to do. Now, it's not to say that, for example, if we go with this waves one, let's say information transfer, because that seemed to be a popular idea. If information transfer is the concept, you might have some smaller, more conceptual things that you're doing day to day, but like every day of this unit, the whole idea of a unit of study is that it's aligning you to a very, I'll say, simple idea. And the simple idea here is information transfer. So the way that Heather said, your standards, binary code is going to be talked about through the lens of this. Light waves talked about, and this is the connection. Sound waves, that's the connection. It is the thing that connects all of your standards. Now, where do we see, getting to your question about, do we come up with this? Is this here? Where do we see concepts usually in unit design? In the form of a, or I should say, an essential question. Your essential questions, I'll say should. It is best when essential questions are written at the conceptual meaning-making level. Not always done, though. Sometimes essential questions, not all questions are essential questions. You can't just take a question about what are light and sound waves? And that's an example, but I've seen questions like that as that's a question about content. You want a bigger idea. An essential question is one that there is no one right answer, that there's no even one right path to get there, that judgments and choices come in, that, well, if this situation, then it might look like this, but if in this situation, they are bigger, more complex, overarching. And the idea of an essential question, it's one that kids can ask themselves every single day. Okay, but wait, how does binary code connect to information transfer? Wait, but how does light waves connect to information? But wait, they're asking the same question over and over and over again. So concepts are your essential questions. So I before threw a marker across the room, and now I kicked a marker across the room. Watch out, everybody. Let's pause there for a second. This is your acquisition. This is your meaning making.
Yeah. I kind of think of like content as like specific skills, right? That like I'm going to teach like a day or 2 days or 3 days based on like the unit and lessons and stuff. But then like concept, I think about like skills I want them to walk away from and carry on with, like almost like a life skill or a big idea that I want them to carry with them on like, their world.
This is what they will remember. They may or may not remember this. These are the dots. This is connecting the dots. But what'd you say? Oh. But this is how we make sense of the world. We process the world through conceptual understanding. This is what the brain processes first. This is why we start with this, because kids get this. They don't necessarily get that. We have to help them see that. Questions or thoughts on these two?